Discovered my wife's family orchestrated my cyberbullying, she knew and hid it, now I'm rethinking our entire marriage. My name is Alex, I'm a 27-year-old guy, and right now, my marriage feels like it's hanging by a thread after a massive breach of trust. I honestly don't know how I'm supposed to recover from this, or trust my wife, Mia, ever again. We've been together for 7 years and married for 5. We even have a little boy, Ethan, who's just turned 2. The first time I met Mia was at a convention. She was in cosplay, and I thought she just looked incredible. We hit it off right there, and it felt like fate. Through all these years, I've always seen her as this loving, selfless, and genuinely kind person. She's been my rock, my safe place, and my best friend. But there have always been shadows in the background, her family. From almost the very beginning, it was clear they didn't want me around. They're this close-knit pack where one person's opinion sways everyone, and if you're not approved, you're practically invisible. A couple of her siblings are black sheep, totally ignored by everyone else and cut off entirely. I had no idea how intense that dynamic really was, but family has always been everything to Mia, so I did my absolute best. I tried to get in good with them. Still, they barely tolerated me, and only seemed to make room for me once Ethan was born. But before we got married, between the start of our wedding planning and right before the wedding, things got really ugly. Suddenly, I was the target of some brutal, relentless cyberbullying. It was personal. My business profile got attacked with fake bad reviews, which actually lost me potential clients. I was desperate, but couldn't figure out where it was coming from or how to stop it. Every time I'd report an account, more would pop up. It wore me down, mentally and emotionally. I couldn't sleep. I was exhausted, barely hanging on. Mia was there for me through all of it, so loving and supportive. She took care of me in ways I can't even put into words. I honestly loved her even more for how she protected and reassured me. Then, right before our wedding, the trolling just stopped. I was relieved. I wanted more than anything to leave that chapter behind and focus on building a life with her and Ethan. Then, just a few days ago, Mia sat me down and confessed. She told me her own family was behind all that harassment. At first, I just stared at her. I couldn't believe it, not after everything that already put me through. But she had proof. She showed me screenshots from their family group chat, gloating, laughing, justifying what they did to me. Stuff like, some people gotta learn the hard way, and, if he wants to join the fold, here's his initiation. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I always knew they disliked me, but I never dreamed they hated me enough to torment me like that. My head was spinning. I asked Mia the hard questions. When did she find out? Was she a part of it? She swore up and down she wasn't involved, that she'd never have done it herself. She says she didn't know at first, not until a few months before our wedding when her sister mistakenly left one of the troll profiles open on her phone. That's when Mia confronted her family and made them stop. I couldn't understand why she hid this for so long. Why now? Why after all these years? She broke down and admitted the guilt's been eating her alive. She confided in the oldest of her sisters, one of the family outsiders, who threatened to come clean to me if Mia didn't do it herself. Nothing she said made it any better. She'd known for years what her family did, and she just kept quiet. The pain was crushing. She knew exactly how much I suffered. She was there for every breakdown, every night I couldn't sleep, every time I second-guessed my own worth. Yet she protected them. She let me open up about my pain, and every time she told me to let it go, she knew the whole truth already. Now it all feels like a lie, her comforting words not for me, but to keep her family safe. I went numb. Mia kept anxiously pushing for me to say something, anything. But there was nothing she could possibly say to make this okay. Her silence was a betrayal. In that moment, what she did was just as bad as them. She tried to apologize, crying and begging for me to understand. She claimed she was trying to repair everything with as little fallout as possible. But I couldn't hear her. There was only this yawning distance between us. I told her I needed to get away, clear my head. She fought it, insisted we could work through this together. But I needed space, and this time I wouldn't let her talk me out of it. That's the one thing Mia's never done, respect my need for space. I'm doing my best to see her side, to understand the impossible position her family put her in. But I feel so lost and betrayed. I trusted her more than anyone. She was always the one place I felt truly safe, and she let me down in the purest, most personal way. I haven't confronted her family. I don't see the point, they're not worth another second of my time or energy. But I did cut them off from Ethan for now. I told Mia they're no longer allowed to see our son until further notice. Now the texts have started, accusations that I'm depriving my child of his grandparents and aunts over past family spats. The worst part? It's the emptiness where my relationship with Mia used to be. She was my partner, my best friend. Now we only talk about Ethan, or household stuff. She's devastated, crying all the time from the distance and my rejection. I don't know if I'm being cruel, but how can I trust her again? I hate all of this. I want to fix our marriage, God, I want my best friend back. But I find myself questioning everything, even the foundation we built our lives on. I'm horribly lost, trying to pick up the pieces, and have no idea what to do next. How do I move forward? How do I save myself, and maybe us, from this? Update 1. Earlier this week, My wife and I were finally able to regroup and hash everything out. I'm relieved that I took the space I needed, because even though the situation still stings and feels like one of the deepest betrayals I've ever experienced, I was at least ready to talk. When I initiated the conversation, she honestly thought I was calling it quits. I told her I wasn't at that point, but we were absolutely at a crossroads and desperately needed to talk things through. She apologized right away, both for her family's actions and her role in everything. She admitted she never meant to hurt me, but she'd convinced herself that by keeping me in the dark, she was somehow protecting me from more pain. She saw now that what she was really doing was protecting herself. She told me she was terrified that telling me the truth wouldn't just end our wedding, but would mean the end of us altogether. Having lost relationships and friendships already because of her family, the idea of losing me too was too much. Over all those years, she wanted to come clean, but just kept talking herself out of it. Then, the lie kept snowballing, and she felt completely trapped, unable to confess once it got so big. I told her straight up I didn't agree with her choices. I wished she'd trusted me, and us, far more than she did. I meant every word, too. I would never have just walked away from her, but it was clear that the mess had gotten too large to ignore. She asked where we'd go from here, promising that no matter what happened, there would be no more secrets between us. I told her I wanted to work on our marriage, but big changes had to happen. There was no way we were going to survive with her family's shadow looming over us, and I made it clear I wasn't willing to let our son be exposed to their toxicity. She asked what I needed from her in order to move forward. I've never been a fan of ultimatums, and I still don't think of it as one, but I was insistent and crystal clear. Anything resembling a future together would mean radical boundaries with her family. She admitted that making such a break with her family scared her, but stopped and said if it came down to it, if it was between them and me or our son, then she'd pick us. That was major for me. I genuinely didn't know which way she'd go if she ever had to choose. I never wanted to back her into that corner, but after what her family's done, there was really no other way. She proved she was serious without me even having to ask. She sent a group chat text to her whole family, telling them to stop calling and texting me, and that the decision to put our son off limits to them until further notice was something she backed fully. She did all of that on her own, and I hadn't expected it. Her family, of course, lashed out. Now they call her disrespectful and ungrateful and claim that her oldest sister and I are poisoning her against them. I heard someone say, "What kind of man takes a woman away from her family over a spat?" This is not a spat. And I have nothing to prove about my manhood. This is a family that ran a calculated campaign to destroy my life, and did so while looking me right in the eye and smiling. All of this boils down to protecting my real family. My wife has now gone low contact. Her family has this mentality that partners and friends are temporary, but family is forever, so everyone owes the family unwavering loyalty. They can't seem to wrap their heads around the fact that my wife, my son, and I are the actual core family here. They're on the outside looking in. They don't have automatic rights to our son. Being involved with him is a privilege. Honestly, I don't even know exactly what their issue with me is. They barely tolerated me, and mostly because of our son. Way back, the first time I met them, one of my wife's sisters straight up said she thought my wife was settling for me because of the age gap, and that she could do better. That entire family is such a tight-knit, suffocating circle. If one of them doesn't like you, the rest will follow suit. Once their minds are made up, there's no changing them, and I long ago stopped trying to figure out why. That rabbit hole leads nowhere. So, the plan we've made now is to move to another area. We both think creating that distance is crucial, for our sanity, for our boundaries, and for a real fresh start as a family. Therapy is on the table, too. We've been talking about it for a while, and we're starting soon. Even my wife's eldest sister, the black sheep, encouraged us to move away from the family's toxic orbit. Back during the wedding planning, she said it would be the healthiest thing for us. I know my wife is so much more than her family. I've seen her at her best. She shines so much brighter outside their influence. That's what drew me to her. She's loving, selfless, and honestly the most decent person I've ever known. I won't lie, though, I'm still really hurt. I still feel betrayed, and my wife is trying to figure out what life is like with low contact. But I want to be hopeful. I'm willing to work toward healing, and more than anything, I want us to make it through this, together. Update 2. We started therapy. I went in bracing for something awkward and artificial, but it was weirdly grounding. The therapist didn't push either of us to forgive or forget. She kept circling us back to what I actually needed to feel safe and what Mia was willing to do without me having to drag her there. For the first time since all this blew open, we were sitting next to each other with a third person saying, "This is the line. Can you respect it?" When we left, Mia squeezed my hand in the elevator. I didn't pull away. That same night, my business page got hit again. Not the full scorched earth routine from before, but enough fake 1 stars to curve the rating and trigger that familiar heat in my chest. This time, I was ready. I'd already put some monitoring in place because I didn't want to ever be blindsided like before. Logs lit up with a handful of repeat IPs and a cheap rotating proxy. It was sloppy, and it almost made me laugh, like someone brought a cap gun to a bank robbery. I told Mia I was going to handle it. She nodded, grabbed her phone, and walked into the kitchen. 5 minutes later, her oldest sister was forwarding entire screenshots of a round 2 chat with her mom, a cousin, and one of Mia's brothers. They were spitballing how to remind me who's in charge, and there it was in black and white, the cousin bragging about the bot he'd whipped together for the first go-around and still had lying around. I called a lawyer the next morning. I'd planned to put my head down and move, but seeing it start back up flipped a switch. The attorney didn't overpromise. He said what happened then was actionable if we could tie accounts to real people, and what was happening now was a gift in terms of preserving evidence. He drafted and sent preservation letters and a very direct cease and desist to each person named in the sister's screenshots. I expected radio silence or more bluster. Instead, the cousin emailed me before lunch. He folded like a cheap chair. He admitted he set up the bots, got paid under the table by family, and that he messed with my business account and left those fake client emails. He attached screenshots of Cash App receipts with little flame emojis in the notes. He wasn't doing it out of the goodness of his heart. He said he didn't want legal trouble and didn't realize it had real-life impact. I sent everything to the lawyer and sat at the kitchen table until the adrenaline wore off. The next day was supposed to be normal, and then daycare called. 2 women had shown up trying to pick up Ethan. One said she'd called Mia and it was fine. The center didn't release him because neither of them was on our list, and because the director knows my face by now after 100 drop-offs. When I got there, they were standing in the foyer with their arms folded. Mia's mom and one of her sisters. No yelling, just that firm, performative patience you use right before you decide to hand someone off to a manager. The director stepped in front of me and said the police were already on their way to help everyone stay calm. I didn't say a word to either of them. I looked at my son through the classroom window, playing with a tiny blue truck, and felt my jaw click. The police arrived, took statements, and reminded them they can't show up to take a child who isn't theirs and isn't authorized, period. We added a pickup password to our file that afternoon. That night, a letter arrived from a law office with my name on it and grandparents' rights splashed all over. It wasn't a filing, just a threat dressed in letterhead, citing vague statutes and deep bonds they absolutely have not earned. We didn't blow up. We didn't spiral. We took the letter to a family lawyer the next morning. The answer was everything I needed, a calm breakdown of why their chances were thin to none given our circumstances, what documentation to keep, and how to set ourselves up if they pushed anyway. He told us to keep doing exactly what we were doing, document, keep it child-focused, and don't engage. We moved fast on the house. Mia's oldest sister tipped us to a rental across town that had just come on the market near her place. I didn't even pretend to sleep the night before we moved. The air was sticky, and we kept bumping shoulders in the kind of quiet that isn't hostile, it's just heavy. The U-Haul was too big for our street, and one neighbor brought over a dolly unasked while Ethan ran figure eights with his blue truck around the boxes. At one point, I looked up and realized Mia had wrapped our wedding photo in a hoodie instead of paper. She laughed when I pointed it out, the sound shaking like she wasn't sure if she was allowed. We drove out before lunch. I watched the mirror like I was waiting for someone to tail us. The new place is smaller but brighter. There's a skylight in the hallway and a patchy square of grass in the back where Ethan declared a moth a little bird. We changed our numbers and made a joint email for daycare and bills. Mia got a new phone and put passwords on everything she used to share around like candy, bank logins, cloud backups, even the ridiculous family photo vault her mom runs. Therapy the next day was different. When I told the therapist we'd had a daycare incident and a legal letter, Mia reached for my knee and didn't pull back when I didn't move. We started talking like a team, what the next time plan is, who calls who, where the paperwork lives, what code word we'll use if someone tries to ambush us in a parking lot and one of us needs the other to take the kid and go. 2 days after we moved, Mia's dad asked to meet her at a diner near our old neighborhood. She went with the therapist's public place, daylight, your car guidance and texted me when she got there. He showed up alone. I waited for the explosion when she got home. What I got was a quiet, collapsed kind of grief. He'd told her he knew about some of it back then. Not the full scope, apparently, but enough. Every line after that sounded like a man trying to minimize his complicity with words like they got carried away and you know how your mother is. He said he was sorry. He said he wanted to see his grandson. Mia sat there stirring a cup of coffee until it went cold and told him my family is Alex and Ethan and left. She cried in the car and then cried again in our living room while I made dinner and the smoke alarm chirped because I forgot I'd left the oven on. The cousin who confessed sent over a signed statement for our lawyer the following morning. Mia's sister, the one who's always been on the outside, got cut out of their group chat. She sent us a screenshot of the notification and a worth it message. I felt something unclench around my ribs reading that. Not a fix, not forgiveness, just a small, stubborn relief that at least one person is done pretending. There are still flickers of the old behavior. A blocked call at midnight. A package addressed to Ethan with no return address and a plastic toy inside that I threw out without opening fully because I don't play games with our kids' safety. We installed cameras and a motion light over the driveway. The first time it clicked on, I flinched like a fire alarm went off. It will get better. That's what I keep telling myself. Last night, after we put Ethan down in his new room for the first time, we sat on the kitchen floor because we couldn't find the chairs yet. The house had that empty echo you only get in a place you haven't made yours. Mia leaned her head on my shoulder. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't try to talk me into feeling different than I do. We were quiet for a long time, and then she told me she'd scheduled an extra session for herself with our therapist. She said she wanted to untangle her loyalty from her fear so she didn't keep choosing wrong. There's still a pit in my stomach when I think about what they did and what she didn't do. That doesn't vanish because we loaded a truck and signed a lease. But today I watched her walk our son up the path to daycare, stop at the door for the password, and check the list twice. I watched her read the letter from the grandparents' lawyer and say, "They don't get to scare me anymore." I watched her tell her dad no. And for the first time since this all cracked open, I felt a tiny edge of something I thought I'd lost, the sense that I'm not the only one standing guard. I don't know what our marriage looks like 6 months from now, but I know what it looked like tonight. She fell asleep with her hand on our son's back, and I lay there and let myself feel a little less alone. Update 3. The knock wasn't loud so much as deliberate, the kind of rhythm that says whoever is on the other side is trained to knock like this. 2 people in polos and lanyards stood on our porch with their hands tucked in the same careful way. I knew what it was before they introduced themselves. My mouth went dry so fast it felt like I'd swallowed dust. It wasn't dramatic. No raised voices, no accusations. They explained there'd been a report and they needed to see the house and the child. Mia's hand found my elbow and stayed there while we nodded and let them in. Ethan ran to show one of them the tiny blue truck he'd slept with in his fist the night before. The caseworker crouched, asked him the truck's name, and he told her blue truck, like that was the funniest thing anyone had ever said to him. They looked in the fridge, the bathroom cabinet, the crib. They asked about daycare, and Mia, without glancing at me, pulled the folder from the counter we'd labeled in thick black marker and had our paperwork ready, enrollment, pediatrician's name, the pickup password we added. I called our lawyer and put him on speaker on the table so no one could say we'd stonewalled or been rude. 20 minutes later, the taller of the two closed her notebook and told us she didn't have any immediate concerns. She used words that meant, essentially, "We're fine, they have to check anyway, we'll follow up if needed." When the door shut, Mia walked to the sink and turned on the water like she was about to wash something, then braced her hands on the counter and stood there with her head down until the faucet steamed. I didn't say it was them, because we both already knew. Our lawyer moved faster than I knew lawyers could move. He filed for a harassment order the next morning, narrow, specific, not a flamethrower. The daycare incident and the new review bot nonsense were enough to get us into a courtroom for a temporary order against her mom and the sister who showed up with her. The courthouse carpet had that sticky gum feel to it and the vending machine ate my dollar while a guy in a too big suit tried to coax a coil of pretzels to fall. When our matter was called, my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. The judge read silently for a long time and then asked Mia's mother, very plainly, if she understood that showing up at a daycare to remove a child she has no legal custody of could be considered attempted interference. The just checking on my grandson's smile didn't land the way it usually must for her. There was a pause, a small lift of the judge's eyebrows, and then a quiet order, "Stay away from us, from the house, from daycare, from my work. No contact. Return for a final hearing in 2 weeks." I exhaled like I hadn't realized I was holding air under my ribs. By the time we got home, there was another envelope waiting, service of a grandparent's petition, not an emergency motion, just the start of the process. Our family lawyer had already gone through the letter that threatened it, and he kept the same unbothered tone when I called. We'd respond, we'd show the lack of relationship, we'd document the daycare stunt, we'd make it clear this isn't about punishing anyone, it's about our kid being safe and our home being intact. Steady wins this, he said, and for the first time the phrase didn't make me think of staring at a wall and swallowing fire. Work shifted under my feet in a way I didn't expect. The platform that had tanked my rating emailed me a bland, bureaucratic paragraph saying they'd removed a significant number of inauthentic reviews and were continuing to investigate. The number next to my name bumped back up and, an hour later, I had an inquiry in my inbox from a referral I'd written off months ago. I answered with my hands shaking as if every keystroke could jinx it. We had our first hearing on the harassment order and the petition right up against each other. It felt like a strange double life. One minute we were in a room where the judge was deciding whether or not to tell grown adults to stop showing up places like it's a normal thing to do. The next minute we were being told there would be a case schedule and deadlines and a mediator assigned because that's the box everyone has to travel through. I never wanted to know what a status conference was. Now I can tell you the sound of the clerk's pen dragging when she writes court dates on a carbon copy form. The cousin, maybe sensing wind direction or maybe just sticking with his survival instincts, sent over more. He didn't just forward chat logs, he signed a notarized statement. He named names. He attached the Cash App trail with a level of detail our attorney actually laughed at, emoji notes and all. The firm drafted a demand package for the civil side, defamation and interference. It had a number at the bottom that made my skin go hot and cold, even though our lawyer explained it's a negotiation anchor, not some lottery. It asked for corrections from accounts we could tie to real people, a written apology, and damages. We sent it through their lawyer. Within 2 days, their tone changed. There's bravado, and then there's reading what it looks like on an attorney's letterhead with exhibits and your cousin's signature next to it. A mediator's office isn't dramatic. It smells like coffee and dry erase marker and the art on the walls is always generic landscapes that look like someone's screensaver. We sat in separate rooms. A woman in a navy blazer went back and forth with a yellow pad. She would talk to me and Mia and our attorney, then leave, then come back with words like they're willing to. Or they say the mother didn't know. And it was like being in a play where everyone's lines got cut up and sent through a messenger. There were things I didn't know I needed until they were on the table. A letter, written by the cousin and the brother, acknowledging exactly what they did and that it caused actual harm. Corrections and retractions delivered to the platforms that matter to my work. Money that doesn't fix it but recognizes we didn't imagine this. An agreement they won't contact us and that if they violate it, there's a penalty baked in. We didn't settle with all of them. The father's lawyer asked for more time. The mother's lawyer tried to braid apology with denial, and the mediator had that careful expression people have when someone's trying to sell them a used car with no engine. We left with signatures from 2 of them and a date on the calendar for the rest. I don't know what it says about me that I didn't feel triumphant, just steady. Like concrete finally starting to set after weeks of wet mixing. The day after the mediation, a detective from a cybercrimes unit called. He wasn't promising anything, he was careful with what he said. He asked me to walk him through the timeline, and I sat in a chair that squeaked in a room that could have been any municipal office in the country and told a stranger how people I'm related to by marriage tried to teach me a lesson. He took copies of the cousin's statement and the screenshots. "We'll see if it meets the threshold," he said, and I nodded, because nothing about this has followed the logic I want it to, but for once a line was being drawn somewhere that wasn't my front porch. The family didn't stop lurching at us overnight. A car idled at the end of our street one morning long enough for the hairs on my arms to stand up, then pulled away when I stepped outside. A package showed up again without a return address. This one had a puzzle inside and a folded sheet that said from Nana. I took a photo, sealed it in a Ziploc, and dropped it at our lawyer's office on my lunch break. Our neighbor across the hall texted me a blurry picture of 2 people in our parking lot at midnight, and I realized I'd told someone new our story without meaning to. In therapy, I said out loud that I hate they get this much space in my head. Mia didn't flinch. She said, "Me too," and then told the therapist she'd made an appointment to change her number at work and update her emergency contacts. Later, she showed me the HR form where Mom used to be and wasn't anymore. I didn't know that box would matter to me until it did. There are ordinary moments stitched through the chaos that make me feel like my body is finally remembering how to exhale. We went to a little park near the new place, and Mia's oldest sister met us with a paper bag of snacks and a bottle of bubbles that left Ethan's hands sticky and his cheeks shiny with soap. She sat on the bench and told me she'd been kicked from a second family chat and that it felt less like losing something and more like taking off shoes that were 2 sizes too small. We laughed in that surprised way you do when you forget your mouth knows how. That night we pulled every document we might ever need into a gray lockbox and slid it under our bed. Birth certificates, daycare forms, court papers, the signed confession, the mediator's agreement. It felt ridiculous and completely smart at the same time. The motion light snapped on over the driveway and I didn't jump. I was brushing my teeth when Mia came in holding an envelope like it weighed 10 pounds. It was from her dad. He'd written in careful block letters. He apologized without telling us how to feel. He said he didn't stop what he should have stopped. He included a cashier's check made out to me with "for Ethan" on the memo line. I didn't want it in my house. We took it to our lawyer in the morning. He mailed it back with a letter that said we won't be accepting gifts or money outside of any formal resolutions. It felt like returning something you never ordered. I still wake up too early. I still listen for car doors in the middle of the night. But last night, Mia sat on the floor with me and helped me redesign the banner on my business page because I'd been putting it off, afraid a new start would just be a fresher target. She asked about fonts and clicked her tongue at the stock photos until we landed on one that looked like our actual work and not something polished within an inch of its life. We were quiet for a long time after that. Not the heavy quiet. Just the kind that lets the air move around you. When we put Ethan to bed, he made me line up his trucks in color order and then he patted my face like he was the one reassuring me. There's a hearing next week that I'm trying not to rehearse in my head. There's a mediator we'll sit across from again, and there are still people who will choose a lie over a boundary every time. But tonight, Mia put her phone in a drawer and left it there. She tucked our son in and checked the door twice without me asking. When she slid into bed, she didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She just put her hand, very carefully, on my chest like she was placing something back where it belongs. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was the only one holding the line. Update 4. Courtrooms all look the same after a while. Wood paneling that's too shiny, a clock that runs a little fast, a stack of files that seems to scold everyone in the room. We were there for the final hearing on the harassment order. The judge had a ceramic lighthouse on her bench, the kind of gift you imagine a bailiff brings back from vacation. She read. She didn't perform. She asked me as mother and sister direct questions and didn't blink when the answers detoured into hurt feelings and family history. She kept coming back to the daycare incident and the messages about a round 2. Do you understand that you are not to contact them, directly or indirectly, through electronic means or third parties, and that includes showing up where their child is? Her voice had the kind of calm that makes people either tell the truth or run out of lies. There was a moment where I braced for some twist, some we didn't know, but it fizzled. The order became real in a way that slid into my bones. A year of no contact, extended to include my workplace and daycare, with a carve-out that if they need to speak to us they do it through counsel. The judge looked at us when she said, "If there are violations, you come back. You don't have to manage this yourselves." The ceramic lighthouse stared down at the table like it heard that line before. We walked out with paper in a manila folder and a silence that wasn't empty. In the hallway, the sister stared at the floor tiles like she wanted them to open up. Mia's jaw set in that way I've seen in a mirror lately. A deputy stood just by the door, casual, a reminder that the lines on the page have wait now. Our turn on the grandparents' petition came right after. Different judge, same gum stuck like constellations on the underside of the benches. He asked to hear about the relationship. He wanted specifics: how many pickups, how many sleepovers, how many pediatrician visits. He got a daycare director's letter and a police report instead. He asked Mia, gently, if there were any concerns about our child's welfare in our home. She told him our son sleeps with a blue truck and thinks moths are birds and that our fridge is full. He nodded, looked down, and said, petition denied. He tacked on a warning about using court as a tool for leverage. He didn't sanction anyone. He didn't need to. The words did enough. On the civil side, the gears started catching. The cousin and the brother signed. The corrections went live like little lights switching on. We previously posted inaccurate statements. The platform's short apology emails are written by a robot, but seeing removed for inauthentic activity next to my business didn't feel robotic. It felt like someone took a boot off my chest. Money isn't an apology. It's a record. Our lawyer put it in a trust account and talked about timelines and releases. I told him I didn't want a victory lap, I wanted my life back. The mother's attorney tried to bargain with Fogg. We sat in a mediator's office that smelled like printer toner and the end of the day. Their offer was all conditional sentiment. The mediator folded her yellow pad and said, I can carry messages, but I can't build a bridge that isn't there. We left with 2 signatures done, 1 delay, and 1 brick wall. Our attorney said brick walls are loud when they fall. I didn't ask for metaphors. I wanted actionable sentences and dates on a calendar. He gave me both. The detective called and used phrases like charging threshold and referral to the DA. He asked for the originals of the logs I'd kept and for me to confirm that yes, I would sign a complaint if it came to that. His voice didn't promise, but there was a steadiness in it that I clung to like a railing. He said a subpoena went to Cash App and another to the proxy service. I hung up and stared at my own hands until my heartbeat moved out of my throat. There are still little flares. A burner email with no subject line and a blurry photo of our old place. A private account trying to follow the joint email we made for bills like it's social media. We forwarded everything to the lawyer and didn't engage. The motion light clicked on at 2 a.m. 2 nights in a row and captured nothing but the neighbor's cat trotting like it owned the world. I saved the clips anyway. Work crept back in like a shy guest. An old client resurfaced with the same soft apology companies give when they're embarrassed. I typed slowly and said yes. A new inquiry came in while I was at the sink rinsing strawberries, and I nearly dropped my phone into the colander. Mia handed me a towel without making a joke. I got through a site visit without checking the camera app every 3 minutes. When I drove back, there was a paper bag on the counter with a greasy translucent circle spreading through the bottom and a cheap bottle of champagne sweating next to it. Mia had written house rules, drink after court victories on a sticky note and underlined it twice. We ate pad thai out of the carton sitting on the stairs because we still haven't found the cutlery box. Ethan tried a noodle, decided it was snake, and asked for yogurt instead. We took the protective order and taped a copy inside the coat closet with the fire extinguisher and the lockbox. It felt ridiculous, and it felt like spying. Mia started doing small, boring things that are not boring to me. She called HR and changed her emergency contact to me. She called the pediatrician and updated the file and asked them to add a note, no information released over the phone without the password. She took her mother's name off her healthcare proxy form with a quiet click of a pen that sounded louder than it was. She left her phone in the drawer again and didn't reach for it when it buzzed. When an unknown number rang and then rang again, she looked at me and let it go. I watched her square her shoulders to walk into daycare alone and give the pickup password without glancing at me. She came back out with our son on her hip and a sticker on her shirt that said Dino Helper. He put his blue truck into my hand like it was my turn to keep it safe. Mia's oldest sister dropped off a plant in a chipped terracotta pot for our windowsill. The tag stuck in the soil just said thrives on neglect, which made us both laugh. She stayed on the sidewalk. She said she didn't want to mix herself into our quiet unless invited. We stood there with the screen door between us, summer pressing in around the edges, and I felt the oddest thing. Room. Not for her family. For us. There was one more diner meeting. Not with her dad. With the cousin. He asked to do it through the lawyer at first, then asked to apologize face to face. I didn't owe him that. I said no to the face, yes to the letter. It came 2 days later, printed in a font that looked like an old school paper, signed in blue ink. He didn't tell me how to feel. He wrote what he did and why and what he's doing so it doesn't happen again. He wrote that he's not asking for forgiveness. I put it in the lockbox and shut the lid. A week can be 3 months long if you live it under fluorescent lights and on hard benches. The day after the petition got tossed, I got an email from the platform that took the longest to respond. They didn't apologize, they don't do that. They said after further review and we've restored your rating. It's just a number next to my name. It made my throat tighten anyway. In therapy, When I said I felt ridiculous for caring about a percentage on a screen, the therapist shook her head and said, "It's the story of what they tried to take. There's still a gap in me that doesn't patch with paperwork. I don't want to pretend it does." But yesterday, we took Ethan to the little strip of grass behind the building and Mia let him dump dirt into his dump truck with both hands while she read through a packet from the mediator and marked a line with a neon tab. He held the truck up when he was done and announced, "Heavy." She told him, "You are." It sounded like she meant more than the toy. We put a tiny rug down in the hallway under the skylight and it makes the echo softer. That shouldn't feel like progress. It does. Tonight, after we checked the door twice, I slid the copy of the order back into the folder and Mia asked if I wanted to put it somewhere else. I said no. I like knowing where it is. She nodded and didn't try to move it to make me feel better. Later, when the house was finally quiet, she climbed into bed and didn't hover like she was waiting for permission to exist near me. She rolled onto her back and looked at the ceiling and said, "I can't change what I did. I can keep doing this." It wasn't an apology. It was a promise said small. Our son woke up at 3 a.m. and I patted across the hallway to put the blue truck back into his hand because that's the trick lately. When I crawled back in, I felt Mia find my ankle with her foot, an absent-minded, ordinary touch that didn't ask for anything. The motion light clicked on outside and then off again, and this time my body didn't go rigid. I lay there and listened to the house breathe and, for a minute, believed that maybe the worst parts of this can be something we step over instead of something we drown in. The line is still there. Tonight it feels like a fence we built together instead of a wall I'm slammed against.